Basketball has its sixth man, the unsung hero who comes off the bench to help his team to victory. Football has its 12th man, an unseen but powerful energy that urges the home team forward. Now, Christianity has its 13th apostle, a faithful witness to the love, mercy, and truth of Jesus Christ. How about you? Will you be the 13th apostle?
It's time to enlarge the space of your tent. The Vatican teaches, and does that mean it's time to change church doctrine? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the 13th Apostle, where we explore the good, the beautiful, the true, and the complicated of the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church. This is Tom Caffrey with my co-host, Dan Duddy. How you, Dan?
Hey, Tom. How are you, Tom?
All right. A little perplexed at, that's just one reaction to, mainly what we're going to talk about tonight is the essay that was published in America magazine, the magazine of the Jesuits, by Cardinal Robert McElroy of San Diego. And he's thrown some stuff at Catholics to consider, to ponder. Did you have a particular gut reaction, or?
Oh yeah, I don't know how much you want to dive into it right away, but I guess we surely might as well. You sent this to us about 3 weeks ago. You know, our group, our tight group of friends. In fact, the guys that we were together with last week on the air, Deacon Chuck Kelly and our friend Jimmy Mulvihill.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you had dropped it off to Peter too, or if it might even came from Peter. I don't know. But, you know, I'm not one that dives in too much into these types of things, but where the writer is bringing us, Father Raymond de Souza, is really bringing,
Wait.
I think...
We're talking about Cardinal McElroy, so who's...
the writer.
What do you mean, the writer?
The writer of the article.
Well, the essay is written by Cardinal McElroy. So what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the commentary that is brought from the essay.
So you read a commentary by Father de Souza?
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry.
See, okay.
I'm actually intrigued by so many definitions of chastity that I was reading more and more deeply some great writers of the definition of chastity, which had to do with the article. So I'm sorry if I'm not being consistent with exactly with the way you opened the show. But let's move on. So we're talking about Cardinal McElroy and things that he's come out with regards to the LGBTQ community and chastity.
Interesting play on words there. Come out and then
yes,
LGBT.
Yeah, and unintended. But in the commentary, it says jettisoning the distinction or abandoning the distinction between orientation and activity, in quotes, orientation and activity, means the end of chastity as a virtue to be strived for, or implies that the LGBTQ community is not capable of chastity and should therefore be preached a lesser gospel. And such is said because Cardinal McElroy is really staging an attack on church teachings on sexuality with regards to that community. And it's a liberal approach, and it surely is. As I sit back and get into the silence and think about such attack that he's being accused of, I think it's absolutely an attack. There's no doubt about it, because this attack on chastity is personal to me because I'm married and I've come to know what chastity is. I came to know what chastity was when I first met my wife Maura, because she put it upon me. And I went and saw the great Father Groeschel and Father Andrew, and they put it upon me. And they gave me literature about chastity. And when I read about chastity, it really brought me to another level of masculinity and joy. And
this is being spoken by someone who has 8 children.
Yes, yeah.
And so the people in that community and others would say, because it's not just the LGBT community. I don't even like that word community. People identifying as LGBT, it's the divorced and remarried and whatnot, and they're saying, okay, well, all right, Dan Duddy, father of 8, happily married. You want us to live in chaste the chaste life, for the rest of our lives, and it could be 70
Sure.
years.
I understand what you're saying. I completely get that. And, I'm referring, when I say that community, I'm referring to the community that's referred to in the article.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So let me just, it's not so much, yes, I do pray for the community that we're talking about. I surely do. And I pray for all to come to the Catholic Church and feel the joy of the Catholic Church. But here's a couple of other personal episodes in my life for the reasons why I'm saying that. I brought my son Danny, who is age 18, to a men's retreat all the way back in, I think, 2015, we'll say. And there was an open microphone at night where the men could stand up and give witness. It was called, I think, Witness by Torchlight. And a man stood up, and his opening line was, in front of about 80 men, we were smoking cigars, he said, "I am Catholic because I am gay." And somebody yelled, "Write a book." And somebody else said, "Make that the title of that book." And the man went on to say that he has learned to live a joyful life, a chaste life, through the Catholic Church, and he converted to Catholicism for it. My argument is that Cardinal McElroy is bringing this to the Catholic Church, the antithesis of what this man, who represents many, is saying. This is why I converted to the Catholic Church, was because the Catholic Church has the answers. It gives me the answers to right then can be chaste and understand truly the sanctity of life and the purpose of our life, and suffers with his same-sex attraction. Tom, I'm going to go on for just another 5 more minutes before I turn it over to you. I also...
Well, you said many, though. You don't know that.
No, but let me go on, because there's a little bit of evidence to why I said many. I also work a camp every year, and I don't want to say too much about that camp, that I coach this camp, where there's 100 men who say that they suffer with same-sex attraction. It is a Catholic-founded camp. They never miss. They've been going for years. They have marriages, many of these men, and they have children, because the Catholic Church has the answer to give them the joy of chastity. That's why I said many. Maybe it stops at 100, Tom, but I doubt it. So there you go.
Yeah, the difficulty is, sometimes I feel like I'm a defense attorney. Just because I want to make sure, as always, that we've explored these things, that because these questions are out there, and if we stay in our own, whether it's bubble, silo, group, it's too easy to forget that others who are not like us, and that could be any group, are not children of God.
Oh yeah,
and so we say.
I hope I'm not conveying anything like that, am I? No.
I don't know.
I hope I'm not.
It's really for those who are receiving your message, and and because there are people receiving Cardinal McElroy's message in a variety of ways. So I think that the biggest difficulty, and there are difficulties with all this stuff, the biggest difficulty is the transgender, because of you're saying that how you were created was a mistake, and is not the truth. And the truth is that you are someone else, and the creature has become the creator. And so that's the biggest difficulty I have, to say, okay, well, where's the reason in this? Now, I don't doubt that a lot of those who identify as transgender some percentage of them sincerely believe it. And obviously, if you're going to the point where you're taking drugs, hormone blockers, other drastic changes to your body, that, okay, well, why would you do that if you don't believe what you're thinking? If you don't believe you're thinking, but of course, the psychiatric wards throughout history have many people in there who believed they were something or someone else. I think that to the opening, we opened it with enlarge the space of your tent. It's a Vatican document put out last year, and Cardinal McElroy's essay refers to that, and it's saying, okay, well, all those people who the church has marginalized. Now, my big problem with that, and this is spoken several times in his essay, is that phraseology. The church has marginalized these people. Is it possible, and I think it is, I think it's more than possible, that for many of these people, they have marginalized themselves? It's almost kind of like the thinking, well, did God condemn you, or did you condemn yourself, by your sin?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Cardinal McElroy, for a significant group of people, I don't know, who knows what the percentage is and whether it's a majority or minority, but that it's putting the cart before the horse. He's saying that the church is putting you somewhere else, again, throwing you out to the peripheries and margins. No, well, nothing's changed in terms of the doctrine. It's not like all of a sudden the church has moved the goalposts, so to speak. This is the teaching that's long been there. So I think there's plenty of room in the tent, otherwise known as the Catholic Church. But if you want to play golf, you can't bring a tennis racket. Well, hey, listen, I hit the ball better with a tennis racket than with a golf. Sorry, you can't do it. And you knew the rules going in. Finally, in terms of that last comment, you knew the rules coming in. That sounds pretty autocratic, and I don't mean it that way. It's a statement of fact. But I do agree with some of the spirit of Cardinal McElroy's, his essay, his petition in some ways, that there are people who are. I mean, I feel a little. Every once in a while, I believe that I'm a little bit marginalized. I'm divorced, as I've said several times over the years on this program. It's a divorce I did not want. But I'm required to live a chaste, celibate life because I don't have an annulment. And so even though I'm, quote unquote, the innocent party, the one who didn't want it, I have the same, I don't say fate, as my wife. Now, I say that with no animus, and I know I've shared with you that my wife and I have actually had some reconciliation over the recent few years. And so there is no animus in saying that. It's the point of, I want to emphasize what our church teaches, and the difficulty that a lot of people have to say, okay, well, so-and-so, whichever, the husband or wife, I didn't want this divorce. The divorce was forced upon me, so now I have to live this way the rest of my life. And they struggle with, various passages of Jesus and living an abundant life. And you've used the word, Dan, joy a couple of times. And people, the challenge is when you're in a position where you're a have, and you teach or preach or proclaim something to the have-nots, that is very difficult. That's an easy message to say. It's a very difficult message to receive.
I get it, and this is sensitive, and it's only 25 minutes, so we can talk about it. But we can define what have means and have not means. We have to be careful with what we're referring to as a have. Okay, the gift of chastity is a have for all to have, and I give you, I honor you once again for putting that out there. Your personal, your life for us. Saint Faustina is talking to Tom, or about Tom, when she says God demands great purity of certain souls. Our priests take a vow of chastity, right? And so he gives them a deeper knowledge of their own misery. Illuminated by light from on high, the soul can better know what pleases God and what does not. That is a have, and that comes from chastity. And we have to be careful about the baseline. Yes, the universal church is for all. Call it the big tent, call it whatever you want, but the tent stands for something, and it stands for bringing people to finish creation with and for God. Okay, we're all called to do that. That's why we're here. Okay, so that we have to make sure that we put our eyes on the grand prize. And the time this baseline could move into who knows what, not in our lifetime, I hope, but who knows the way things are flying, into a warping of the incarnation. You know, the word becoming flesh. You know, through and words like the Immaculate Conception and being conceived by the Holy Spirit. I mean, we really need to be careful with the baseline here, truly, and make sure that we're holding tight to our doctrine and invite people to the joy of the things that we're talking about. The have here is chastity. That's the have.
So if it's that joyful, that joyous, would you... and I don't mean from a divorce standpoint, I mean from the chastity and celibacy. Would you want to, let's say for the next 15 years, would you want to walk in my moccasins?
No, heck no.
I don't mean about the divorce. I mean chastity and celibacy.
Well, no, but you can't. I can't say yes to. No, hold on. I don't know why you're laughing. Truly, I can't say yes to the chastity part without understanding the deep gift of the suffering and where it came from. It came from an immense desire for you to stick it out.
But you
That's
can't.
Where it came from.
Right. You can't know it. And, you know, remember we talked about this? About versus know. Remember that? Because right now you're talking that you know about this. Like if we're trying to imagine somebody.
I know about what? I know about chastity?
The chastity and celibacy and having, let's say, the divorce, divorced and remarried.
Oh, you don't think I've ever practiced chastity in my marriage?
No. I'm saying that from
a number of years. I practiced chastity. Very, very difficult. Very difficult to have a woman laying next to me for a number of years because she was going through her change and, you know, getting up in years. So I had.
No. Yeah, I'm talking about the principle. You know, we always try to make it, you know, we can give a personal witness, but then we say, okay, well, what's the principle behind doing this? And I know from talking with people and from reading other essays and parts of books and whatnot, that the challenge is always when you don't have a group doesn't have something which they want, and maybe so. Let's say they feel they're entitled to it, or they should by rights that they should have it. On the other side of that fence, somebody's telling them that you can't have that, and let me tell you why, and find the joy. You find the joy in that. You could say the same thing about women ordination, which is what Cardinal McElroy talks about.
I understand that, but I think that's a little bit of a different topic because of where I'm going.
But it's in his essay that this is all about changing doctrine.
I get it, but what I'm saying is we're talking about the Catholic Church. We're talking about the crucifix. We're talking about the have of suffering, which you have come to understand, and I have come to understand. Tomorrow is an anniversary of the death of my son. There's a have in the suffering. I'm not pulling that out as some power tool. I'm not.
Because you don't want other people to have that.
I want people to have.
I mean, they're a have-not.
In the suffering that comes through the crucifix, and it's also written here in the commentary that Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, is that how you say it? Who was created a cardinal by Pope Francis in 2019, has been advocating for the same change because of what he says the sociological scientific foundation of this teaching is no longer correct. But if you look at the crucifix and the have of the suffering, or the have of same-sex attraction, that suffering, there's no sociology and science in that. It's blown apart. And we got to make sure that the baseline doesn't creep toward that and start to nudge the crucifix over. We have to be careful. That's all. That's what I'm saying to you, my friend, and that's where I'm standing.
Well, for a lot of people, that's an abstraction. Bump the crucifix over. I'm not sure. There's somebody who wants to be more included in the church. Are they by definition bumping the crucifix over?
No.
Obviously, a lot of them would say no. Maybe all of them would say no, or most of them would say no.
No. I'm talking about when we move the baseline towards sociological issues. We have to be careful that those are human-made issues, sociology, right? That's what it is, the study of. We have to be careful that all these fallen creatures are not coming in and pushing things aside. It was just a visual, an analogy of bumping into the crucifix. We just have to be careful at baseline. That's my point. I would love to see us all feel the joy of chastity in this very, very short, quick life of suffering and pain and these confusing inflictions that we have. I would love for it to happen. Life is short. We can do this. And I pray for the community that's mentioned here in this commentary.
So I'm going to make a reference to a few of the comments by Cardinal McElroy. The vision of a church capable of radical inclusion. Is that term, you're going to read that a lot, ladies and gentlemen, radical inclusion. Shared belonging and deep hospitality, according to the teachings of Jesus, is at the heart of the synodal process. And we're not going to get into the synodal process, the bishops getting together in community to hash things out. I'm thinking when Jesus ministered to the woman caught in adultery, he did give her mercy, forgave her through his love. He also said, go and sin no more. That's not mentioned in Cardinal McElroy's essay. I thought, some of the points I said I liked. He asserts there's a false divide between Pope Francis Catholics and St. John Paul II Catholics. And
is that written in the commentary? I missed that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting comment. Yeah, I'm going to go back to that.
And we've talked about that, where it's conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, traditional, modern, those who emphasize right to life, and the others emphasize social justice.
Yeah.
So I think that, he talks about the continuing sin of racism in our society. He's right about that. We'll make a comment. This is the other thing. There's a lot of lack of specificity in some of his commentary. So synod participants have testified eloquently to the sustained ways in which patterns of racism are embedded in church practices and culture. Okay, that would have been a perfect time to give us evidence. But he was putting forth a position, and there was no evidence. Piercingly, the church at times marginalizes victims of clergy sexual abuse in a series of destructive and enduring ways. That's true. It's a big shame on that. Here's the poorest among us, the homeless, the undocumented, the incarcerated, and refugees often are not invited with the same energy and effectiveness as others into the fullness of church life and leadership. Cardinal McElroy, you need to tell us, and you should have written how. How do you bring the homeless, for example, somebody who's incarcerated, into church leadership? These are practical questions, because you talked about sociology, and because we are creatures. We live in a society, so we have to figure out how's the best way to get along. So I think that Cardinal McElroy threw a lot at us. Let's go right to this, the idea of women as ordained. He's talking about first in the diaconate, but he doesn't stop there. And even though I think you and I would both agree, and I can't imagine most, if not everybody in the audience would not, that they wouldn't know that you go into a church or a parish, we'll use the word parish, and there are far more women in the parish offices. Women run the ministries, the non-ordained ministries. And I understand that a lot of women say, okay, well, we hear the calling. Now, they say, well, that must be the wrong number, because, according to what our faith teaches, you can't become ordained. There are references when people who are pro women diaconate say, hey, there are women in sacred scripture referred to as deacons. Phoebe is probably I think that's the one I'm thinking of with St. Paul. But in no place in sacred scripture is there a reference to holy orders and women. the women who are known as deaconesses. Holy orders, ordination, that terminology is never used with women. I'm not saying they should never be deacons. I am saying that there's no, if you're going by history and tradition, so far there's no evidence of that. So, but people say, okay, but don't be guilty of traditionalism where you say, okay, we're going to be shackled, or as you and I talked about several times last year, the sacraments can't limit God. So anyway, we're out of time. I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we
All
are.
right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to read, even if you find it very distasteful. These are still children of God, the people who are in the other. And that's what our faith is about. The other. Christ is all about the other. So these
Amen.
people are others.
Yeah.
How do we...
Universal church. It's for all. Absolutely.
How do we work with them?
Truly.
Okay, Danny, what's going on next?
Praying. Stay tuned for the Angelus and your prayer intentions with our friend Peter and Jemmy.
Our friend indeed, as with Marianne, Jean, and James, and the rest of the crew. WQPH Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your help and will always appreciate your help. So remember us in your prayers and in your donations. God bless you, Danny.
God bless you, Tommy. God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to the 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th Apostle?